I will be able to find the slope and y-intercept of a line on a graph in an equation and when given 2 points. The vocabulary for this section, and that's kind of overwhelming, so let's start with just slope-intercept form. So the slope-intercept form is the slope is simply the way of writing the equation of a line so that the slope and the y-intercept are immediately apparent. So I can recognize in slope-intercept form, I can immediately pick out the y-intercept and I can immediately pick out the slope. You need to have this equation memorized. It is very, 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 very important. So y equals mx plus b, you need to have that memorized. Start working on it now. Keep telling yourself y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b, y equals mx plus b. That's slope-intercept form. The second vocabulary word is slope, and that is the steepness of a line. Slope is the m in y equals mx plus b and is always the coefficient of x. It is the rise over the run. It is also the change in y over the change in x. And slope can be positive or negative. The last vocab word that you need to know is the y-intercept. It is the point of intersection of the line and the y-axis. So hence the y-intercept on the y-axis, and intersection, it's where they run into one another, is also called an intercept, kind of like when a football player intercepts the football from the quarterback that was trying to hit a receiver. So y-intercept is the b of slope-intercept, y equals mx plus b form, and is always the constant. If you want to think about this as being the bomb on the y-axis, b for bomb. Okay? This can also be positive or negative. And it is the ordered pair. So my x value is always 0, and then the y value, or the value of b. So identifying slope and the y-intercept in a graph. We are going to do 4 of these examples. If you want, you can sketch these on a piece of graph paper or on a piece of real paper. Just make sure that you have the 2 points plotted. So this point and this point need to be plotted correctly so that you can count your slope. So we said slope was, let's start with slope equaling. So slope equals m, which equals rise over run, which equals the change in y over the change in x. So all of these things are equivalent. You might see slope written like this. You might see slope written like this, or like this, or like this. There are several ways in which to indicate slope. The most common way that you're going to see it is with the m. Right? M equals. I'm going to ask you that. What does your M equal? And M represents slope, and it's going to equal our rise over our run. So when I count slope, I have to put my rise on top and my run on the bottom. You also need to start with the point that is farthest left. That does not mean that it is the highest on your graph or the lowest. It is the farthest left. So it has the most negative x value. So the farthest left, it's the most negative x value. So you're going to start at that point. I am going to drive on my grid to the other point, and I'm going to use arrow notation. So I'm going to rise first, and then I'm going to run. how much did I rise? And I rose 1. How much did I run? And I ran 2. Remember, when I go up, when I go left and right. When I go left, it's negative. When I go right, it's positive. When I go up, it's positive. When I go down, it's negative. This is also something that looks familiar from last chapter. So my rise over my run is 1 over 2. In my second example, my farthest most point is over here. It has the most negative x value, and I'm going to rise. Rise sounds like I'm going to go up always because of the balloon, but it's not the case. Rise can go up or down. So I am going to go down, and I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I went down 5, and I'm going to go right 1, 2, 3, 4. And I went positive 4. So rise, so M equals rise negative 5 and run 4. Starting at my most left point, and I'm going to go to the next one. I notice that I go up and down none. So rise none and run 1. If I use my calculator and do 0 divided by 1, it's going to equal 0. So the slope of that line is 0. Also, you can walk, if you were a person, you could walk across this line, right? I can walk across this line. I can walk across the ground. However, look at this one down here. I'm going to just pick a point down here and a point right here, and I'm going to rise. I'm going to rise 3, and I'm going to run 0. So I rose 3, and I'm going to run 0. I cannot walk on that line, right? I physically, as a person, cannot walk to the ceiling. So this line cannot happen. 3 divided by 0 in your calculator is going to give you an error, and that is undefined. So this slope is undefined. It's not 0, it is undefined. 0 and undefined are 2 different things. Okay, identifying slope given 2 points. You are just going to graph these 2 points. At negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And at negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? You can draw your line in between those two. I'm just going to graph the 2 points because I'm going to drive now to the other point. So I'm going to rise and then run. I'm going to rise 4 and then 7. So 4 and 7 is 11. So I went up 11 and I went over 2. So my rise over my run is 11 over 2, which is my slope. Second thing, I'm going to plot my points. I'm going to go right 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm going to plot negative 4, negative 5. So go, or negative 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'm going to drive on my grid to find my slope. So I'm going to rise negative 10. Nope, negative 9, sorry. I'm going to rise negative 9, so I went down, and I'm going to run, rise, and I was right, this is negative 10. I'm going to rise negative 10, and I'm going to run 9. So my slope is negative 10, 9. It's this diagonal, right? It's the steepness of my line. Identifying slope given 2 points. These are the 2 same points. I'm just going to show you how to do this algebraically. You do not have to know how to do this in order to test because you can graph your 2 points and then count. However, the change in y over the change in x, this is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I'm looking at my 2 ordered pairs. My first ordered pair is my x and y1, and my second ordered pair is my x and y2. So I'm going to take the y2. And I'm going to put that over my x2. Then I'm going to subtract, and I'm going to subtract my y1 and my x2. So if I have -4 and -7, that's -11. And if I have -6, this becomes +4, I get -2. A negative divided by a negative, so m equals 11 over 2. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. So I have y2, y2 over x2, subtract y1 and x1, and I have 10 over -9. So I went down on the last, when we did it on the graph, we had down 10 and over 9. These two things are equivalent as long as one of our denominator or our numerator have the negative. So those two things are equivalent. Last thing that we're going to do is identifying slope and the y-intercept in the equation. Remember that y equals mx plus b. M is our slope, and I'm going to come down here. B is our y-intercept. So that's the only thing you're looking for. So y equals mx plus b. If I write this right underneath here, my m's line up. So m equals 4. My b's line up. And b equals -10. Remember, when we have that negative symbol, we're actually adding the opposite because of integer hill, or we know that that negative or that subtraction sign goes with the 10. In the second example, my m is the coefficient of x, or the number that comes before x, and my y-intercept is the constant that is by itself. It doesn't have a variable. I'm going to erase this red. My m is the coefficient, or the number that comes before x, and my y-intercept is the constant. It's the number that's by itself. These are kind of tricky because we have to have it in y equals mx plus b form. And if you notice that this doesn't exactly line up, so we have to be paying attention. And if we are paying attention, we can just rewrite it. So I have y equals, I'm going to write -9x plus 4. I just switched these two things, but I also know that this -9 goes with the 9x. So I have flip-flopped them. Now my m, or my slope, is -9, and my y-intercept is 4. -9 is the coefficient of x, and 4 is my constant. Same thing. I need it in y equals mx plus b form. I know that I can flip-flop two sides of an equation, and I can rewrite it in slope-intercept form. My slope is the coefficient of x. It's the number that comes with x. And my y-intercept is my constant. I'm going to rewrite. So I have y. I have a -5x. Ooh, what do we notice about this one? I noticed in all the other ones that x and y were on opposite sides. Do you notice that on this one too? Yep. So I have y equals -5x plus 2. M is -5 and b is 2. The last three, and these are just quick examples, this doesn't have an mx plus b. So if you do not see an x, if x is gone, if it's not there, then m equals 0. If you don't see one that has a b value, then B equals 0.